Hey everyone, welcome to the Smart Economy Podcast, a production of neonewstoday.com. I'm your host, Dylan Grabowski. This is a special episode of the Smart Economy Podcast dedicated to the NEO ecosystem's footprint at Consensus 2023, which took place in Austin, Texas. This was the second year in a row that NEO had a booth at Consensus, whereas last year the booth was predominantly staffed by ecosystem developer communities. This year, NEO brought with it dozens of community members from within the ecosystem to join the party. Stationed at each of the partner pods were the following entities building in the Web3 space: AxLabs and COZ, who are entities that build developer tooling for the NEO ecosystem; For the Win Network, Perlin Finance, and Flamingo Finance, which are providing DeFi tooling in the ecosystem; GhostMarket, a cross-chain NFT marketplace; Greenfinch, a decentralized Dropbox; and Digi, a 3D metaverse game. Alongside the partner pods, other representatives from the community were also in the booth to talk about the ecosystem, including the co-founder of NEO himself, Da-Hong Fei, and representatives from the NEO Foundation, NGD Enterprise, and NEO Research. This year's physical activation was a major step up from last year's. This year, booth participants onboarded onto the NEO blockchain by receiving a physical ring that was embedded with an NFC antenna, and the users also got a LIZARD NFT that was drawn by a concept artist at Ubisoft. After the ring holders had bound their LIZARD NFT to their OneBand NFT ring, they were invited to visit each of the partner pod booths where they could scan their rings, which dynamically added new elements to the LIZARD NFT. And after the entire event concluded, OneBand ring holders were invited to enjoy a free beer on the NEO ecosystem at a happy hour that was held at a venue in Austin. The following guests that we're going to hear in this episode include Vincent Geneste from GhostMarket, John Devidas from NGD Enterprise, John Kim from Perlin Finance, Gil Spurb Machado from AxLabs, Tyler Adams from COZ, Sergio Avila from Flamingo Finance, Jill Lopez Bueno from COZ, and Robin Green from Greenfinch. As always, just a reminder, nothing said on this podcast is a solicitation to buy or sell any tokens, that nothing should be taken as financial advice, and that the host or guests may hold tokens discussed in any given episode. With that out of the way, I will say without any hyperbole at all that NEO had the most popular booth at Consensus 2023. Hands down, it was the talk of the event. On average, people waited in line 30 to 45 minutes, with some reports of folks waiting up to 90 minutes to get their hands on the OneBand NFT ring. Throughout the entirety of the 3-day event, the NEO ecosystem really stepped up collectively, and all of the teams worked around the clock to ensure that every visitor was able to chat with someone from within the community. Those onboarding users onto OneBand and staffing the partner pods put in 9 hours a day to keep up with the demand and the excitement for the activation. Personally speaking, it was so great to see so many people from the NEO ecosystem. I hadn't seen many of these faces since 2019, and I was also able to meet some new folks who've joined the ecosystem in the years between then and now. Consensus 2023 served as a place for the NEO community to congregate, break bread, and catch up with familiar faces or put faces to names that we see on the screen. Based off of the vibrations and energy that were in the NEO ecosystem booth, it was obvious it had been far too long since these builders had shared their progress alongside one another in the trenches of a conference. Before we delve into the event, let's meet some of the new folks in the ecosystem and hear what returning guests have been up to. While this team did have a demonstration video at last year's event, Consensus 2023 was the first time the Greenfinch team got to demonstrate their decentralized Dropbox platform in person and meet everyone in the Neo ecosystem. Robin went on to talk about the team and their desire to connect with the community of brand new users that they met at the event.
I'm Robin Green. I'm co-founder of Greenfinch with Alex Walker. We are the leanest possible team you can get. There's two of us. I'm a front-end developer. Alex is back-end developer. I do the marketing, vesticles, accelerators, things like that. So there was a lot of work. Alex is putting in a lot of hours just to get us to a point where we had a release and that people could download when they came here. By all accounts, people are interacting with Greenfinch, they're downloading. We want people to get involved. We want them to get their hands on it. We want them to feed back to us.
John from Perlin Finance recently attended the Web3 Festival in Hong Kong, but hadn't been to quite as large a Neo community gathering as this year's turned out. He shared a bit about the upcoming lending protocol that will launch this summer on Neo N3.
We are a lending protocol for Neo. Think of us as Compound or Aave, if you will. So what users can do is they can deposit their Bitcoin, Neo, Ethereum into our protocol, and we'll give them cash and stablecoins in return for their deposit. So once the users repay the loan with the interest, we'll give back the collateral, whatever the asset the user deposited.
Jill from COZ has been around the Neo ecosystem for quite some time, dating back to 2017, but this was also his first major Neo event where he got to meet the global community. Alongside his projects in COZ, Jill also shared some of the projects that he works on behalf of Neo News today.
Today I'm working as tech lead and project manager for Neo Boa project, which is a Boa Python compiler for the new VM. And also I work with the wallets and TypeScript tools like Neon.js and Wallet Connect integration with the wallets and stuff like that. I've worked on NDEP and GuessBots as a consultant for my team, like Lopez and Raul that works with the project. But yeah, I'm more like a consultant.
Sergio has also been in the Neo ecosystem for the past few years, having created NFTs and submitted the Somnium Wave Metaverse project to the 2022 Neo Polaris Launchpad Hackathon, which won an Excellence Award. Since then, he's also combined forces with the Flamingo Finance team and shared with us a little bit about what the DeFi platform representatives were chatting about at their booth.
So I'm here with Flamingo Finance with Bordois as well, which is our content guy and our marketing guy. So we're both here talking about Flamingo and all the different DeFi features we have, like our lending and stuff like that, and just kind of letting people know what we're about.
Gil from AxLabs should be no stranger to anyone who listens to the Smart Economy podcast, as he was a guest on the second episode of the podcast series. He offered a quick overview of some of the things that the team of three based out of Switzerland have been working on over the past few years.
We don't have like a product, but we just ask to people like, we can do everything. We're hardcore engineers. We are like, we can code like low level dApps. You know, we have like a touch with business as well. Like we are all engineers in AxLabs. We've seen a lot inside AxLabs. We've like executed different projects, like from DAOs to SDKs, compilers, like developer tooling. Also now we have like this collaboration with COZ for the ring.
Tyler from COZ touched upon the potential that this event had for attracting new members to the Neo ecosystem, particularly those who really enjoyed engaging with the OneBand NFT ring.
It's exceeded my expectations. I think the fact that people were willing to wait up to an hour to enter the ecosystem, that's actually something we were just talking about, how we can get people into the ecosystem faster as they're experiencing the activation. Very exciting how many people, it seemed like even walking around the conference, everybody was talking about.
So, who were these booth participants that were waiting so long to wait for the Neo experience at Consensus 2023? John from Perlin Finance touched upon the lengths that some of the booth attendees went through and the breakdown of some of their profiles.
So first of all, kudos to the marketing team. You guys did it. It was the hottest booth in the whole Consensus. The reason I was so busy all day was we had too many people coming in. We had a limited supply of wallets and the rings, but people wanted so much. So they were waiting in line for the longest one I've seen was 90 minutes. For 90 minutes, they just waited to get this ring. And I felt bad because they were waiting so long, so that I just went up to them and became a talk buddy for them. Oh yeah, so I think 70% was retail investors and 10% didn't know blockchain, but they just came in because they thought it was cool or their company made them. And the rest, like 20% was, half of them were institutional investors and the other half was really gurus from other industries.
Joe from COZ gave a nice breakdown of the types of conversations he was having with visitors to their booth and what the booth participants found to be most interesting.
Well, I think most of the people are new here, actually. They don't interact much with blockchain. A lot of people are curious, trying to learn, but there's a lot of people that are working on other projects, on other chains. There are some kind of developers that are focused building something and are searching for which blockchain they should be using. And I talked to a few of them. They got interested by Neo. There are some of them that are interested on Neo ID. Others are interested on the language we support. People come to the booth, to the COZ booth, to ask about the ring, to ask about Neo, why is it interesting, what is the difference? Ask about COZ at all. Yeah, I've been telling them that COZ is from the beginning of Neo since 2014, and we have been building tools for developers. And I showed them the wallet, show the ring technology, all this stuff. They are super excited about everything. Some of them are very excited that Neo is back. Some of them are very excited about the ring, the technology, everything's connecting. Well, our booth is really incredible. I feel everybody's excited because there's a long line of people wondering to experience that. And yeah, I'm very excited.
Neo wasn't the only Layer 1 public blockchain at the event, and interoperability has long been a focus and priority for the ecosystem. So I was curious to hear if there were any cross-chain conversations going on at the Neo booth. Vincent from GhostMarket shared some insights into the conversations that were surrounding NFTs.
So they had a few comments, but I would say the funny thing is I would have expected most people knowing about NFT and marketplace to talk about EVM marketplace, but actually most people who want to talk to me were interested in non-EVM marketplace and blockchain. So like Cardano or the non-EVM chain, basically. That's I figure that today a lot of people were from this kind of space, and not the traditional Ethereum, Polygon, and whatnot.
Something I really enjoy about these events is that part of the on-site experience is you'll never know who you're going to be talking to. It could be a general investor, a private equity fund, a developer. The list really goes on. So it was interesting to hear more about the types of conversations that each of the partner pods had. Sergio from Flamingo spoke about some of the developers who'd came by their booth to chat with them.
Yeah, I think various people that I came across and did the ring activation too, they were asking about how they can go from Solidity on Ethereum to Neo.
Nice.
And they're asking about our virtual machine. They're asking about our compilers, like what kind of formats and binary and stuff like that. I feel like I've been getting a lot of people that are built, they have projects on Ethereum and are looking into Neo. And once we tell them like that you can make smart contracts in like Python or JavaScript or Go or other programming languages, like you just see their eyes like open up.
Consensus this year was a 3-day event, with the first day being unique to Pro Pass holders and the last 2 days for general admission. Robin from Greenfinch shared a little bit of insight into the differences between the types of attendees on the Pro Pass and general admission days.
Yesterday was more kind of the general what's going on, what's happening with the Neo stand, what's happening with the projects, understanding the OneBands and like how people really like those. And they wanted to know about us and the projects, but they weren't necessarily interested in going into the depths on the technical side. Whereas today, you've got people who are coming from broad spectrums of businesses. You've got investors, you've got builders, you've got engineers, you've got devs, and they want to know exactly what's going on with our project, like how we built on top of Neo FS, and what does it mean in terms of a user interface? And what does that look like, and how can we build on top of that?
Gil from AxLabs also noted the differences between the booth attendees from day 1 to day 2.
Yesterday, there were more, I would say, not corporate, but more experienced kind of people, like from companies and stuff. Like today, there were more general public, students, like startups, people like building stuff. Yesterday was more, people from government, from corporates, from pharmaceutical companies that they were trying to find out what's next, in the industry. But I like better today, to be honest. Yeah, because it was a more diverse public. I think today was the main day. Let's see what comes next.
This year's Neo booth experience was somewhat handcrafted by the planners of the event. It was by design that the OneBand NFT ring would gamify the experience for booth participants and incentivize them to chat with ecosystem projects. So I wanted to know, is Tyler from COZ already thinking about next year's consensus event?
I am. I've been actually planning that probably about 6 months now, because it will be bigger than even this event, I think. So last event, and now it feels like, we're running with the ball right now, and we're really, it feels like we're competing against ourselves at these events. Next year, to me, a growth perspective for our team, it has to be even better, right? It has to be even more exciting, even more engaging, even more interesting. So yeah, for a few months now, I've actually already been planning and concepting with the rest of the team what could be available for next year, for consensus specifically.
So we've heard about the participants and the visitors to the booth, but what was the OneBand experience like? Frankly put, consensus attendees loved the activation. But how did it impact the partner pods at the Neo booth? Vincent from GhostMarket noted how the OneBand activation really engaged booth visitors in a positive way.
Quite a lot of people came up today. Most of them were interested in the whole ring stuff, but quite a bit of them were still interested in each individual booth, I think. First of all, because it takes time, and so you get to talk to people. There's no way around unless you want to stare them into the eyes. And a lot of people gave me the same comment. It's funny, like I think it happened twice during the day. They told me compared to other booths, they thought Neo people in general were genuine and really interested in what they were doing, as opposed to other booths which were basically pushing people to not buy something but do something.
I asked Sergio from Flamingo if he was speaking mostly to devs or with more generalized audiences, and what were their varied responses to the rings. He spoke about the novelty of the OneBand activation at the Neo booth.
I would say that more than most is just kind of like regular people that are barely getting into blockchain and just kind of like experiencing it for the first time, finding out with like, what technology like the ring activation, what the dynamic NFTs can do. I think people are like really haven't seen something like that before. Like right after they do the onboarding and they get their rings, it's like they come straight to Flamingo, and then they'll go to GhostMarket, and they go to For the Win, and all the booths are getting like mad attention from everyone, which is exactly what we want.
The setting up of the booths, the tablets, and the NFC scanners kind of came together at the last minute, and there was tons of running around the Neo booth until moments before the doors opened. Robin from Greenfinch went on to talk about the team's excitement about participating in a phygital interaction despite the last-minute stress.
Maybe yesterday morning was a little bit hectic, but brings a little bit of energy to the situation. And yeah, we're really pleased. Like, it's opened our eyes to what's possible with the setup, the screens, and having the interaction with the OneBands, and then having the opportunity to talk. And we've got a real sense from the other projects of what we can start to think about providing if we were to come back, which we'd love to do, because it's been brilliant. So Alex and I really enjoy the whole physical digital space, especially from connected devices. So for us to have the opportunity to play with this, we've got interest from people building in the NFT space. Now you can start to think about, okay, how do we bring this to the real world? So we've got a ring where people are interacting with the projects, but you can imagine the whole of this conference could be powered by a NFT band or OneBand on brands. And for us, we want to explore all of those opportunities. Not all about the digital online. It's also about how do we bring that into real world? Where's mass adoption coming? People talk about NFTs. They kind of know what they are, but actually once you start to bring it into real world, people really get it and they've loved it. They're happy to spend the time, 20, 30 seconds it takes for everything to go through when they register on the pod. And then we get to talk to them. So yeah, it's really cool to see in action. And it's hopefully the brief that's set, I think goes to smash it, really.
Yeah. Throughout the 3 days of consensus, a recurring question kept arising. People kept asking how much they could buy the rings for. My answer was always simple. There is no price. It just costs your email address. And this is something we asked of each person who onboarded into NEO via the OneBand activation. Gil from AxLabs noted a conversation toward the end of the second day that led into a comment about finding the right product market fit.
There were literally people coming to our booth asking, like, how much does this cost, the ring? How much does this cost? Like, I mean, how can I get it? Say, no, you cannot get today. You have to come back tomorrow. And they said, no, I'm going to buy it. I'm going to buy it right now on the spot. And I told, look, you never know what comes next, but it's for free for this event. Come back tomorrow and yeah, you'll see, you have to experience, the whole thing. And we're not selling them. So this demonstrates that we found that some kind of market fit, not accidentally because we knew that it was valuable, but we never imagined that it was that valuable.
The OneBand rings were made with open source software so that developers can build on top of the device using toolkits that COZ intends to release in the near future. John from Perlin noted his thoughts on the ring's ability to potentially attract developers.
For developers, I think the activation helped a lot with recruiting new developers into the ecosystem. So we will definitely help out to whomever reaches out to us, because I've met a lot of developers who wanted to code in Neo, and they love the fact that they can code in C# and any different languages.
Regardless if the booth visitor was an OG ant or someone who heard about Neo for the first time in April of 2023, the OneBand NFT ring experience was one that excited all participants regardless of their time in the blockchain and crypto space. John Devidos from NGD Enterprise said,
I mean, look, it's been awesome, man. I mean, truly, it's been truly awesome, right? And I think the key is it's opening doors. It's opening doors to people who knew us from a long time ago, but also people who did not know. They're coming in and saying, what is this? What is going on here? Right? What is the big, hoopla? And they walk away with a very nuanced understanding of what is in the platform, the tooling in particular, the developer experience. So it's been awesome. And again, I don't want to overuse the analogy, but really the one ring to open doors old and new.
The OneBand NFT rings have been under conceptualization for a few years, but they really kicked into gear with their production in 2023. Tyler from COZ described the manufacturing and development process of the OneBand rings, as well as the significance of utilizing the Neo mainnet for the demonstration.
Yeah, so we've been doing research, in research phase for the technology for about 2 years. It really started kind of in the beginning of the year. We started entering a project, and then we passed prototyping phase and started entering development. About 1,000 rings that we gave out. The event were by hand in the past probably 6 weeks. And I think that's actually really important for people to understand that these were handmade. It's great. They're a ring. They weren't mass produced. They were handmade. To me, they're art. They were hand fabricated. I touched and finished every single ring, and I programmed half of them. And then Eric, who's also one of the original COZ developers, he did the ledger work. He programmed the rest. It's really, it's an art to me that we're giving out to the community or the general blockchain ecosystem, who now are actually part of the Neo ecosystem as well. But the booth itself, and I think this is really important for listeners to understand, everything was run on mainnet. It was a live tech demo. The rings we gave out, the NFTs we gave out, you can see them on the explorers. You can see all the transactions. Any of the listeners can go and view and count how many people were there. People can export their assets that they receive to any of the ecosystem wallets. It's real. They can touch the people that participated can touch the technology.
Buzz and excitement was certainly in the air, and I was curious to hear about how it might have attracted projects, teams, and developers to the NEO ecosystem. But I also wanted to hear how excitement levels like this at other events might compare or contrast to the booth energy that was at NEO versus some of the other killer booths at other conferences. Gil from AxLabs spoke a little bit about taking risk in a booth demonstration in order to attract developers and potential partners.
I've been to many conferences in the blockchain space. For example, I go to Ethereum DevCon conference since 2017, I think, when it was in Mexico. I've been to Osaka, I've been to Bogota. And last year, I've been to Bogota. It was pretty very large conference, but very few people or projects were doing live demonstrations or showcase of their tech. Very few. They have a video, or they have maybe some PowerPoint where they talk about it. So here we decided, let's take the risk, because things can go wrong, network connection, or a tablet that it gets stuck somehow. So we took the risk to demonstrate things live. And this, I think, is super valuable, because people generally don't see things live in blockchain space. When they see something live happening on chain, they say, man, this is awesome. This is great. But I'm just showing that it works, should not be that difficult to showcase. But there are a lot of risks, but I think that's one of the differentiators from other conferences. And I think that we show some diversity in especially in this consensus, you show the projects that they have in our ecosystem. So in other conferences, I don't see that very often.
The sharing of contact information at the onboarding kiosk when we were bringing new users into the booth was not the only way that connections were established at Consensus 2023. Robin from Greenfinch described what it was like meeting new people who became interested in following the progress of the project.
Yeah, it's really interesting, actually. It's a lot of connections. People want to talk to us further. They want to monitor the project. They want to see where we go. They understand for us, Greenfinch, really early. We've got a lot of work to do, but they are really interested.
Of course, with an activation like OneBand on NEO, people were really just excited to be in the booth area. John Devidos from NGD Enterprise noted the ease of conversations that were struck up and how he takes cues from these discussions to help shape the projects that the team will work on next.
The key for me is, I don't want to use the term meetings, it's just talking to people, connecting with people, and partly selfishly because I learn. They tell me what they like, they tell me what they don't like, they tell me what they want to see. And so I learn, I get feedback. It helps me to decide what we should do next for us in terms of tooling in particular.
The leads in the booth might have varied from day to day at the event. For instance, on the first day of the event, Pro Day, attendees might have already known exactly who they were seeking to collaborate and partner with, whereas the other days could have been more generalized audiences. Vincent from GhostMarket spoke a little about his experience on day one.
Conversation where, as it was Pro Day, people knew what they were talking about for the most part. And, they had, some of them already had something in mind, had a few payment aggregator or payment on-ramp coming to us because they know we're a marketplace and whatnot. 2 companies reached out to me, and we'll see how it goes. And we are literally in the process of changing that on our end. So it's a good fit. So that's what the Pro Day is about, I guess, finding synergies.
Yeah.
But besides that, it was mostly open conversation on the NEO ecosystem.
At last year's Consensus, the NEO booth attracted a lot of attendees, but personally, I didn't collect enough cards or contact information, so my ability to connect with folks after the conference was limited to what information I was able to collect. This year, we asked participants to opt in or out of sharing their email addresses as they were onboarding into the OneBand rings. Tyler from COZ went on to acknowledge how this year's plan sought to build upon the lessons learned from last year.
Yeah, so one of the things that we tried to prove on from last year's activation was that lead generation. So when people connected with Wallet Connect to the item shop to receive their item NFT and their OneBand and their LIZARD NFT, they would enter their email address and just really basic information. We want to make the onboarding experience as light as possible. That information is tied to their wallet, right? Which is tied to the ring. So then we can monitor and we understand the flow of information through the booth and the flow of people through the booth, as well as where they've accessed and who they've talked to, right? So we can actually allow those projects to effectively build a mailing list from that information as well. So if somebody went to the Flamingo station, for example, or for the Win station, right? We know and we have their contact information. So if somebody scanned and talked to Ed, for example, well, maybe Ed is releasing a new product or has a product update or a new feature or some event, you can contact those people. So that was one of the real goals.
Given the high vibrations of positive energy at the Neo booth, I couldn't restrain myself from asking the guests of the podcast about how their perceptions of Neo might have changed from before the event to after they'd participated. I'd wanted to find out from them if Neo was back or if it had always been here. Sergio from Flamingo noted the longevity of Neo's lifespan, but also the reinvigorated energy.
Yeah, I mean, I always felt like Neo had a really solid foundation, had, really good developers and just general technology. However, prior to this, I felt like Neo was in a place where it needed some kind of push to really get out there. And after today and seeing all the people coming into the booth, it feels like Neo is totally reborn. It feels like we're really up there with Polkadot, Solana, and all these other booths that are here, and people are loving it, man. So it's crazy to see.
From my perspective, I don't think it's a trend in the market or the growth of a project or a major announcement that can change the narrative of an ecosystem. It could be its community members that are meeting face to face for the first time and realizing that meeting in real life is very different from interacting online with one another. And these new interpersonal relationships can change the perception of a project, especially when an entire ecosystem is watching others at other booths talk so passionately about their projects. Robin from Greenfinch said,
"Oh, wow, polar opposite to where we are today, 2 days in to where I was a week ago, a month ago, because it's all about in real life. We're seeing people. We're seeing the people behind the brand names that we know, that we interact with on Discord. So we're getting to meet people in real life who are behind the Discord handles. We know on Discord, they're funny environments. Things are said, things happen. But what we've got from this experience is the idea that there are a core team and they are excelling at what they do. It's not just Neonies today. It's not just COZs and COS, AxLabs, but Flamingo. Hopefully we can be part of that, where we can bring the whole community along, because there's so much hard work going on behind the scenes. And it's I had no idea yesterday morning when I arrived how much work had taken place to get this up and running. And those that are responsible for that work should be really proud of it, because it is incredible. People are talking about Neo like they've never talked about it before. They're coming to visit. They want to know more, and they want to interact with the projects. They want to interact with you guys, the teams, and they want to know now, where's Neo going? What's the next step? And I think for a global blockchain like Neo, there's nothing better that can come out of this. From our perception, we can play a role in helping people understand what's going on behind the scenes and help them determine they should get involved. And then we can all build together. And I think that's all you can ask for in these situations. So yeah, I'm really impressed by the kind of interactions that have been occurring here at Consensus.
An interesting trend I noticed that was predominant in Consensus 2022 was that people remembered Neo from the 2016 and 17 era, but did not keep their finger on the pulse amongst so many projects in the blockchain space. This year, it was easy to show that NEO is a thriving ecosystem, as there were 8 communities on hand to talk about their projects. Jill from COZ touched upon the interconnectivity of these projects that were represented at each of the various partner pods.
Yes, some of them recognize NEO from back and ask why they don't hear anymore about it. And I tell them about N3, that we have been working to have a new platform with everything integrated. And they're understanding that now it's a new phase for NEO, and they're very excited. Because they have some affection with NEO from before, and some of them just knew now, but they're also excited. I think these events show the people that NEO is strong and have a very good community, like a lot of projects showing up here on the booths and a lot of teams. So yeah, I think it's strong. Today, when I was presenting on the booth, every time I understand that everything's connected. Like you can use Neon Wallet to check your NFT that you got on your ring. And then you can go to GhostMarket, sell it. I've talked about all the projects in my booth. I talk about Flamingo. I talked about Greenfinch. It's everything connected. I think the community is very well strong, and we are building a lot of awesome things.
Alongside quote unquote NEO still being here, booth visitors also picked up on the fact that everybody presenting their projects were genuinely excited to be building in the Web3 space. Vincent from GhostMarket said,
Few people did mention, okay, how come you guys are still here? We're not aware. This thing sounds very cool. And, which is what we want. People want to be aware of we're here. That's the whole point. But it also shows that currently too less people know about it. I think in our case, it was sure the ring, but at the end of the day, I got 3 people telling me, you guys seems very genuine and you love what you guys are doing. And how come we don't know that?
In 2023, NEO had a little more competition among Layer 1 public blockchain networks that were presenting at Consensus, certainly more so than 2022. But while there was competition, there also wasn't the same reception to other booths that NEO had commanded. So I asked Gil from AxLabs if he was generally bullish on the NEO ecosystem and if this year's Consensus had changed his perception.
Let me start not talking about directly to NEO, but about like the atmosphere in Consensus. So I observed that this year, more L1s, came to Consensus with big booth and like to showcase their stuff. Last year, there were some, several, but not with the power or like the as large as they're having this year. So this is one of the difference. But I'm talking specifically about like NEO. I think that like last year we showcased NEO and the capabilities of NEO, like NeoFast and SDKs, oracles, built-in oracles and stuff. But this year is about more the communities and like the products, and because people have to see that people are building on NEO and what is possible to do. So but I mean, this year I didn't get so many questions about, for example, are you still alive? I didn't get because last year a lot of people came and say, oh, I was a big fan of like in NEO in the N-Chairs times, from the N-Chairs times, and are you still alive? Like, what are you doing? This year didn't get so many questions about it. Maybe it was an effect of us showing all the projects like Flamingo and GhostMarket, AxLabs and COZ, the ring activation, because people said, okay, there are projects, they're doing something. So I think that's super great. I think like I'm a bit biased to answer this question because I was bullish, like on you. I'm a bit biased, so it didn't change my perception. I think the biggest difference now is that I see how people are united with a common goal. When you meet people and you talk to the guys like face to face, meeting you, like Dylan or like Harry and like Tyler, Dean, like GhostMarket guys, Flamingo, you see that we have a common goal. And like sometimes in the digital space, when you're talking Discord, of course, it's very easy to send a message. But when you see in their eyes that they're building something and explaining their product, that they want to make your product a success on NEO, it makes a huge difference. So that's what stood out for me in this year in relation to NEO. Amazing.
Many builders in the NEO ecosystem have forged bonds after building here for the past few years, and newer projects might see these relationships and get excited themselves to build on NEO. Of course, having a cool OneBand NFT ring activation helps stir up conversations about the ecosystem. John from Perlin Finance noted this phenomena.
It's really cool how little people knew about NEO, but after the activation, they were really interested in what NEO is all about, and they kept asking, what kind of the apps are on the NEO blockchain and how can they get involved? I see the strength of NEO blockchain to be offline. It's a really rare trait that any ecosystem has because we've been around for a while now, so people recognize the brand and they know NEO, but they just didn't know the news for it. But I think with the success of the booth, how wildly successful this was throughout consensus when I was just walking, and it wasn't even near the booth, but people were just talking about the ring and NEO blockchain. It was super weird, a wild experience.
I first joined the NEO ecosystem back in 2017, and ever since I can remember, the hype machine for the project has been kept somewhat minimal by project leaders. This year, though, there was a tangible deliverable in the OneBand NFT ring. This product showed the NEO community that the long, organic path of slow but consistent, measurable delivery is beginning to pay off. Tyler from COZ said,
So we've been doing this now for doing events, live activations with NEO. One of the things that we've really pushed on is the user experience and how we can make it very easy for people to enter the ecosystem. I know the community sometimes gets upset about the hype, things like that. But one of the things that NEO's always been known for is leading utility and the real technology. We're actually building what we're saying we're building, and we deliver on that. And this year, I think people understood that. That really resonated with people because it was very clear from the booth, and you'll see it in the videos, the lines. We were, again, one of the only active booths that actually had a mainnet activation. We had a real use case showing real utility on mainnet live at the booth.
After meeting hundreds of booth participants, a statistic which is verifiable on-chain, the projects are likely ready to hit the ground running with new relationships that have been formed as a result of the event. Robin from Greenfinch acknowledged the new community members they found at Consensus.
They get it. So they're like, okay, I want to see how you take the next steps, which is, for us, it's bringing in the community, proper feedback cycles, testing, and then revenue models, iteration, next design, rebranding. They want to be part of that. They want to understand where we're going to be in 6 months, in 12 months, and further. So for me, it's lots of LinkedIn connections. It's lots of Discord, probably. People want Telegram. We're not really on Telegram, but we could be. The demand was there. But I think it's a lot of just having new people and exploring the ideas that we put into production and how that's going to develop over the coming months and years.
As a result of meeting so many people at the conference and connecting with ecosystem developers, new projects might arise from the ideas generated in these conversations. Joe from COZ noted that he's excited to get back to work.
I actually am, yeah. I've been talking to some developers. I talked yesterday with Victor about some ideas I have for like multi-signature and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm excited to talk to them on this part later to share some ideas.
Something Consensus 2023 offered at the Smart Economy podcast is that we were able to hop on the mic with one of the newer projects in the NEO ecosystem. For community members who are looking forward to the forthcoming launch of Perlin Finance, John said,
"It's coming soon." So my internal deadline is to launch in late May, but I don't know if that's possible, to be honest. So I always say give just the estimated deadline, but please expect early June. I think that would be a reasonable deadline for us. The summer, DeFi summer, NEO summer.
Long-term community members seeing others they haven't seen in a while also served as a morale boost. It signaled to one another that the NEO ecosystem builds through both bull and bear cycles, and that the community continues to move forward no matter the weather. The essence of this thought was touched upon by Vincent from GhostMarket.
It was great also because, if we are still doing both, all those people are still working on the project, it's because it's worth it, and it makes sense. And having a common purpose, goal, there might be things to improve for sure, but I think it's going in a great direction.
While it was great to learn about the next steps for the projects and community, it was also really cool to hear a bit more about the forthcoming vision for the architecture of the NEO blockchain itself. A new generation is on the horizon for NEO, but as always, big technical roadmaps take a long time to develop and properly implement. John Devidas from NGD Enterprise touched upon the next generation for NEO.
So last year was a sense of maybe more of accomplishment, if you will, is the word I would say. This time, there is a sense of anticipation of what is next, right? And I want to clarify something to you, Dylan. We talk about versions, right? Version 1, version 2, version N, right? For me, versioning is a detail. The higher level aspect is the generation, and my sense is kind of this first generation of the underlying platform is almost winding down. And now we are getting ready for the second generation, truly, right? Versions aside, I think what we should look forward, and in fact, what you will see in the coming, months or so, is going to be this next gen, second gen of us, but also more broadly the industry as well, in my opinion. Look, we know we are building a platform for the smart economy. We know. Very consistent and very comprehensive. And I've said this before, right? The viability of an architecture of a platform is the sustainability, the longevity, and being able to respond and react both short-term and long-term. I think you've seen mostly the short-term responses. The longer-term responses coming up in the near term, I think are going to be really, truly powerful. There is a whole lot more coming. I'll tell you an example, a story, if you will. I'm talking to one of the developers here. He's building a lending protocol. And the way he was describing to me was very evocative. His sense was, John, we are building something that might be maturing in 5 or 7 years or even longer. And when you have that perspective, that mindset, everything falls into place. It's not 6 months. It's certainly not 3 months. We're talking multiple years. But what we are building today is going to be the critical foundation of what happens in a few years. Wait for the second generation roadmap release. So what we are seeing here in consensus is very big. It's very big. And you're seeing it, I'm seeing it, right? But I think what's coming up next is going to be even bigger.
Regarding the OneBand NFT rings, there's some forthcoming developer tooling and documentation, and a future activation at an event that will take place in mid-2023. Will there be further activations, I asked? Tyler from COZ spoke about the next steps for the OneBand rings.
Yeah, so I think the next thing in the very near future will be new interface. That's at least for me and the team working on it, that's the priority right now. From a product and a technology release perspective, we have already an activation in the next 2 months that's pretty substantial from a marketing and kind of end user engagement perspective that I think the community will hear about very soon, probably in the next week or two. And then I think we'll start seeing the proliferation of the technology in a few very specific areas, primarily the high-end art, like physical art market, as well as some of the gamification concepts. There have been multiple large conferences, including Consensus, actually, which have expressed interest in using this technology at their events. Many of these events were like at least 10,000 people in attendance. So I think there are a lot of different opportunities for this. When we talk about the technology, we're talking about embedding it in textiles, in cardstock, in physical art, and sculpture. There are a lot of different applications in apparel. There are a lot of different areas.
Well, what did you think of those conversations? As I mentioned during the episode, I've been in the NEO ecosystem since 2017. In my years spent in this space, one of my favorite articles about NEO came from coverage of NEO DevCon 2, which took place in Seattle in 2019. While the name of the article is a long gone memory, the sentiment with which it ended has always stuck with me. The author noted that NEO's ecosystem mightn't have had the size or depth of Ethereum's, but nonetheless, it did have a group of passionate, tight-knit tinkerers. And all these years later at Consensus 2023, with the dozens of global community members that were packed into one booth, I once again got the sense that I got in 2019, that NEO's community is here, we're battle-tested, and we're ready to forge forward. I want to give a shout out to everyone who flew from afar to join the event this year in Austin. It was a pleasure and an honor to have spent time with you. If the true utility of a Layer 1 public blockchain is its Layer 0 community of builders, then NEO's booth demonstrated true utility. For anyone interested in learning more about the OneBand NFT ring, building on top of the technology, or implementing the OneBand technology into your next project, then visit www.coz.io/OneBand. On that note, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to listen to the Smart Economy podcast. If you liked what you heard and want to support the show, please keep NEO News Today in mind when voting for your NEO Council representative as part of NEO's governance process. We appreciate you and look forward to catching you next time.